Democrat, for these states are mostly, seems like a good amount of them have a majority white population. And I think that what we have to be focusing on right now is if Bernie is going to do well in a state like Utah, I think that we should be seeing where he's doing well in, because besides the fact of Salt Lake City, obviously, because that state is shockingly, I mean, it's not a battleground, but it is interesting to see because Hillary won that state in 2016. I don't remember about Colorado. I'm not trying to spread any false news or anything like that. I don't know if Bernie had
Hillary won in the Colorado 2016 primary. I can look that up.
Yeah, and then the other thing is North Carolina. I'm actually a little shocked to see that Biden's just ahead by 3, because North Carolina's they have a substantial African American community voting in that state.
Similar to South Carolina.
It is similar to South Carolina, but
it actually looks like Bernie Sanders won 58 to 40. 59 to 40, more like.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, Colorado's a pretty progressive state anyway. They just elected their first gay governor, so
I think Bernie Sanders is probably going to. Bernie Sanders is up in Colorado, I'm pretty sure, as well, and that's a pretty sizable population. So, as also one of the most experimental states in the country in terms of just things going on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's all. It's definitely nothing to dismiss when it comes to Bernie Sanders. So let's just go through. So if you're a Biden fan, which you, to my best of my knowledge, you used to be a pretty big Biden supporter, how are you feeling coming out of tonight in terms of your chances down the road? Do you see Biden getting a big enough bump in time to make real change on Super Tuesday?
I think that we're good. I think that Biden has a shot at making the case that he can be the nominee. I mean, we are early in the race still, and we do have to realize that Bernie is doing well because of the fact that there are many moderates in the race that are chopping up the vote right now. And I think that if it was just between Bernie and Biden, I think that would be really the best shot at seeing who can actually do well, because Bernie is having an easy win right now.
I think that's... Yeah. What about... You think it would be the best for Biden, you mean, is what you're saying? If he went against Bernie?
I think it would be the best. Yes, I think it would be. I think it would also be the best thing for the race right now, because then we probably wouldn't have a gridlocked convention, most likely.
To narrow it down between Bernie and Biden?
Yeah. I think that would be the...
Do you think Biden could beat Bernie, though?
It depends, because it really depends on how they both campaign in each of the individual states. And I think that it also depends on where the voters are going, because, I wouldn't be shocked if some Buttigieg, young supporters who support Buttigieg actually go over to someone like Bernie. I really wouldn't be shocked. Same thing with Bloomberg. I mean,
if you look at it, every single, except for Bloomberg's second choice supporters are Biden's, but go to Biden, but every other candidate supporter's second choice is Bernie Sanders, except for Bernie Sanders, whose second choice is Elizabeth Warren, obviously. But that's according to a new Morning Consult poll, and they also did an interesting Morning Consult poll about how Bernie Sanders polls head to head. So with other guys, and I think obviously the most favorable matchup would be a Michael Bloomberg. That would be really, really nice for someone like Bernie Sanders to go against.
Okay, how's it with Bernie and Biden right now, according to those polls?
I just remember him beating Michael Bloomberg. I don't remember the exact result, but I'm pretty sure he beat everybody else, but maybe Biden by a smaller amount. But that could be interesting, because I think he honestly can make a pretty good case against anyone that he runs against. Yeah, and see if we can get a bigger idea of what's going on. Because Morning Consult, they do have some pretty interesting polling. So there's name recognition. Okay, here it is. Hypothetical general election matchups. That's general election matchups. Bernie Sanders is the best, 47 to 41. Which still, it's not a very big margin. It's not a big margin as what you think it would be. let's see. Name ID. If it'd be really nice if we get the head to head stuff that they had over in the past. But if I could just pull that up, I mean, what's your guess? Do you think Biden? While I find this, do you think Biden would be able to beat Bernie Sanders?
I think that I think I got to think about this one for a sec, because I think that it would really have to matter on how he does his cases in each of these different states. And to be frank, let me think here, because I think that Biden and Sanders would be in a really tight head-to-head race, to be quite frank. I don't know if I can really say.
It was YouGov.
I don't really know if I could say who will actually win, because honestly, Sanders has a big backing, while Biden will also have a rather big backing if all the moderates actually drop out of the race. For once, it's not really. It shouldn't be that hard of a thing to understand that you're not going to win a damn race.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. I bet the egos are too big.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why people don't understand that after a little bit of time now. I mean, talking about Buttigieg, Warren, and Klobuchar here, and also Bloomberg. But overall, I think that it really is going to be a tight race if they go between each other, because I think that we have a case. You can make a case for both candidates that they can both win. You can make the case for Bernie by saying he has a large amount of grassroots support. He campaigns a lot in individual states, and he really just runs hard for it. And then you can make the case for Biden saying, well, he has a name recognition of people. He can also make the case through his campaigning, which it seemed like that really worked for him in South Carolina tonight, because he really was just going straight for South Carolina. I mean, like, he was talking about South Carolina for so long. He was talking about South Carolina more than Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada. He was talking very little about New Hampshire. It was really
his last shot opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, when you look at it historically, Bill Clinton lost the first 11 primaries in 1992. Well, history has told us that, Bill Clinton was able to clinch almost every other state, actually, every other state's primary, which actually had clinched in the nomination for, the 1992 election, and he had beat George H.W. Bush for that race, for example. I mean, look, the fact that I think that people were getting a little bit of a high horse. This race is going to come down to a gridlock if we have this many candidates, and it's simple. I mean, I don't see a path for Sanders if we're going to have all these candidates still in. If we're going to have one candidate against Sanders,
I think
it's
going to be very hard for Bernie Sanders to get the majority. And I think if you have someone like a Michael Bloomberg who's really does not need to drop out under any circumstance, because he just has so much money. So about these polls,
going to give Sanders a win if Bloomberg stays in.
Yeah, Sanders will win if Bloomberg stays in.
Unquestionably. Sanders will win.
Yeah. So that head-to-head matchup is 53-38 with 10% undecided. So Sanders really in favor there. But the person he probably would do the best, or would do the best against Bernie Sanders in a head-to-head matchup would be Elizabeth Warren, because 14% are unsure for her, but she does have 44-42. Bernie Sanders still winning though. Biden though would be second best with 48-44, with 8% of people being undecided in a Biden-Sanders matchup. Michael Bloomberg crushes. Sanders crushes Buttigieg even more, 54-37 with 10% in between, and then Amy Klobuchar 54-33 with 13% in between, and head-to-head matchup between them. That's according to YouGov polling there, and I think it's like that definitely puts up the argument, the ridiculous argument that a lot of pundits have been making. It's like, oh well, if you combine everybody else's support, then they still win. Then they would beat Bernie Sanders. It just does not make any logical sense. And it's really deluding yourself at this point in time. But we've heard a lot of talk about this broker convention that you keep talking about. Everybody keeps talking about, I think with good reason. And do you think that what do you think will happen at a broker convention? What will be the consequences if the Democratic Party does decide to literally give the Democratic nomination to someone who didn't get the most votes in the Democratic primary, for example, which we at this point assume will be Bernie Sanders?
Yeah, we'll be Biden if it's a broker convention. Biden will get the nomination because superdelegate support for Biden has already come out in
He has
large
the most. He
masses.
has the most superdelegate support, not a Warren or Buttigieg or Klobuchar.
I would be shocked. I got to check up on the numbers again because how superdelegates work for people who don't understand how it is. Each, for example, if I'm a congressman and I'm a Democrat, I'm a superdelegate. Governors are. Um, I believe former presidents are as well, if I'm correct. Democrats, obviously, who are still alive. Um, so I think that I would be shocked if Buttigieg had more support than Biden because, first off, a lot of the people who are, you know, Democrat superdelegates are more established and would probably most likely support someone like Biden over someone who is non-established like Buttigieg. But I mean, Warren, I think Warren would be too left for many. I think that's the problem. And Warren doesn't have a lot of support in the House of Representatives. I think only like two
I think it'd be really.
congresswomen.
I think it'd be really hard to give Warren someone because she just does not have enough popular support. And I mean, I think if Bernie Sanders gets the most votes and doesn't get the nomination, Trump will get a second. Trump will get a second term. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
What do you mean by that? He would get a second term. Why would that
Trump would get a second term because there would be enough pissed off Sanders supporters to stay home, and people would just be incredibly pissed at the Democratic Party. Not even necessarily Sanders supporters.
That is true.
People
that
would
is
be
true.
like,
I can see your point there. Yeah.
What? Like he won, but he lost. Like because you stole. Like that's something that I think is going to really rub people the wrong way.
But I think Bernie's going to have a tough time against Trump anyway. I think he has good debate skills, but the fact of the matter is Bernie's slipping and sliding on this thing with Cuba. While Cuba did have good educational policy, don't get that wrong. The fact of the matter is I mean, he's going to use that. Like, I'm not saying that Bernie did anything wrong, really. I mean, he did it a little bit. He slipped up a little bit badly. But the fact of the matter is, I think that what's going to be bad for Bernie is that, look, this is an ad fiasco election, it seems like to me. I mean, Trump's already running ads, and we haven't even gotten to the nomination yet, and he's already running ads in certain states for his re-election campaign. And the fact of the matter is, it seems like people actually listen to these ads because Bloomberg has not had many campaign events. Bloomberg has not had, he's had 2 debate appearances that have gone pretty disastrous, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people have agreed with me. And the fact of the matter is Bloomberg is really the only thing Bloomberg is really showing people is through his ads. And his ads are, look, to tell you the truth, if taking away everything I know personally from my own research and listening to other people talk about Bloomberg, his ads really aren't that bad. The fact of the matter is, like, you can really trick someone with Bloomberg's ads. Like, he makes himself look like a really good guy with getting rid of the coal factories in certain areas, being the reason why, according to him, being the reason why we have a House majority and Virginia House and Senate majority, because he donated a lot of money to help. I forgot the group name in Virginia that was doing a lot of groundwork to elect Democrats for the Virginia House and for the Virginia Senate. He ran campaign ads about that. He ran campaign ads about his time in New York City. He ran campaign ads about his take on the NRA and his relationship with Obama. Like, look, his ads really aren't that bad if you really don't understand everything of Bloomberg.
If he puts it in the right way, he gets to completely decide his framing, and they're always on the TV. And I think that really that starts to get in people's heads after a while.
And the fact of the matter is, Bernie is definitely going to have, well, first off, Trump is going to make an ad about Bernie, without a doubt, if he's nomination about that. And he's going to, skew it around, make it look bad, this and that. And the fact of the matter is, people listen to that. Look, I mean, it's hard to believe, but a lot of people really don't care about sitting down, researching about each and every thing that is said about someone, and they will listen to an ad. And
I really think it's about
Florida,
a simple narrative. Like you gotta make a narrative.
Yeah, you gotta make a very good narrative. And the fact of the matter is, they've already made narratives that have seemed to push the needle a little bit in certain areas. I mean, I think that Bloomberg, if I'm talking about Bloomberg now, would push the needle in the sense of, the ads that he's running are showing him as someone who's gotten things done and this and that. He'll work